Citizens speak out. In countries like Bahrain, Egypt, Germany, Greece, India, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Palestine, Sudan, Syria, Tunisia, and Yemen, people continue to demand that their governments act in the best interest of all fellow citizens by ensuring basic safety, freedom, and democratic rights.
Germany. Prensa Latina reports that hundreds of Germans gathered in front of the Brandenburg Gate on Sunday, June 19th, to call for an end to the 50-year economic, commercial, and financial blockade of Cuba by the United States.
Greece. As Greek citizens continued to protest, Prime Minister George Papandreou called for their united support of his proposed budget reductions, explaining that without the assistance of the current loans, the country would run out of money and the reductions would need to be more severe. He also announced plans for a referendum so that the people can vote on the Greek political system and constitution, as he asked political parties to join in a national accord to overcome the crisis.
Egypt. As a military court on Sunday began to prosecute journalist Adel Hamouda and editor Rasha Azab over an article in which they interviewed people who claimed they had been tortured by a military officer, Egyptian journalists expressed their concern that freedom of the press continues to be suppressed under the current leadership.
Meanwhile, the defense lawyer for former President Hosni Mubarak announced that he is suffering a cancer relapse and is medically unfit to stand trial. The former leader is currently in custody at a hospital in Sharm el-Sheikh and has been charged with ordering the killing of peaceful protesters.
Tunisia. During a trial on Monday for former President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali and his wife Leila Trabelsi, they were found guilty of misappropriating public funds and sentenced in absentia to 35 years imprisonment each, along with $66 million in fines.
The remainder of charges, which include illegal weapon and drug possession, were postponed until June 30th to allow lawyers more time to prepare a defense. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Justice stated that another extradition request to return the couple from Saudi Arabia to Tunisia has been filed with the Saudi government.
Palestine. The Miles of Smiles 3 convoys succeeded in bringing necessary aid to Gaza through the Rafah border crossing with Egypt on Sunday, as 15 vehicles and over 50 people from the European Union, South Africa, Tunisia, and Lebanon delivered 30 tons of medicine, medical supplies, and food.
Libya. On Sunday, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, said it is investigating an incident in which a technical failure caused a missile to accidentally strike a residential area in the capital Tripoli, killing 9 citizens, including 2 infants. However, on Monday, NATO denied the Libyan government's claims that the alliance's airstrike killed an additional 15 civilians in Surman, explaining that there were no recent NATO operations conducted in that area. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates government joined the United Nations and several Western countries in imposing sanctions against Libya, as it authorized the central bank to freeze the financial assets of 19 Libyan figures.
Syria. After storming the border town of Badama and detaining as many as 70 residents on Sunday, Syrian forces blocked roads in a northwestern border area to prevent refugees from entering Turkey. The Turkish government, which is sheltering over 10,500 Syrian asylum seekers in camps, meanwhile sent an envoy to the Syrian capital Damascus with a letter urging the immediate removal of President Assad's brother, Maher al-Assad, who is currently commander of the Syrian army troops that carried out the recent attacks.
The following day, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad addressed the nation in his first speech in 2 months, where he offered to diffuse tensions by creating a national dialogue process to address reforms and expand a recent amnesty offer for detainees. However, he refused the possibility of reforms amidst what he termed chaos and vowed to hold accountable all those believed to have caused bloodshed. Activists reported that protests began immediately after the president's speech in cities like Homs, Hama, Damascus, and Aleppo, where over 50 people were reportedly arrested.
Meanwhile, members of the international community also responded, with the U.S. State Department calling for the president's actions and not words, and British Foreign Secretary William Hague stated that President al-Assad must deliver concrete reforms or step aside, while a group of European foreign ministers issued a joint statement saying that the president's credibility depends on his implementation of announced reforms. This came as they met to consider adding more than a dozen people and businesses to a list of 23 already sanctioned, with an asset freeze and travel ban, including President Assad.
Pakistan. An estimated 1,500 tribal members demonstrated in Miran Shah, the main town of the North Waziristan region, with residents also observing a general strike as they called for a halt to U.S. unmanned airstrikes, also known as drones. Saying that innocent lives are at stake, the demonstrators stated that they would block supply routes and even take up arms against the Pakistani military if the government does not halt the drone attacks.
As we join in sorrow for the precious lives lost and the people in nations struggling to realize harmonious ideals, we pray for all strife to end, and that citizens everywhere may coexist in dignified safety, freedom, and peace.